Pork loin is really one of the easiest things to grill up or smoke up out on your kettle, your offset, your pellet grill, whatever you have. You can even do it in the oven. I've done this many times in the oven. If you just take it to the temperature that we're aiming for, 145 degrees, which is the safe temperature for whole pork pieces, you're gonna get tender and juicy pork loin. But before we can throw it on the kettle, which is actually gonna be tomorrow, once again, I'm getting everything done the night before, so when it's time to cook tomorrow, I just head outside, fire up the grill, and get this pork loin on. We need to get our glaze ready first, because it's gonna be a honey mustard glaze. Now, right here, I have a very thick half cup of honey. It's a raw honey. It's a mixture of wildflower honey and an orange blossom honey. And to this, I'm gonna add half a cup of some very coarse stone ground mustard. If you just have regular mustard, I'd recommend something like a brown mustard. That works really well. We're gonna get this in here. And I'm just gonna use my fork to slowly mix this together because that honey is very viscous. It is super thick. And we are gonna put this in the refrigerator overnight, so it is gonna thicken up a lot. But tomorrow, before we use it to glaze our pork loin out on the grill and to save some for some sauce, once we're ready to eat it, we will sit it out for about half an hour to kind of come to room temp and thin out a bit. But you can see by adding that mustard here, it has thinned out quite a bit. That liquid in the mustard, especially this coarse stone ground mustard, really helps with that. Get a little taste of this. Oh, that combination of tart and sweet, the mustard and the honey, is perfect on pork. So I'm gonna go ahead and cover this and we're gonna move on to our pork loin, and we gotta get the rub for that ready first too. So there are really two layers of flavor on this pork loin. There's that glaze and sauce that we're gonna be using once it's out on the kettle and near the end, and then once we're serving it as the sauce. We also need to get a base layer of flavor on in form of a rub. 4 ingredients, very simple. 1 tablespoon of kosher salt, 1 tablespoon of a coarsely ground black pepper, 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, and 1 teaspoon of granulated garlic. Just gonna give this a quick little mix here. If you want to, you could just put this in a container and shake it, or in a shaker bottle. I just like doing it like this sometimes. All right, that's ready. Let's get our pork loin out here. So here's our pork loin. It's about 4 pounds, just a little over 4 pounds. I'm not gonna do any more trimming on it. It came pretty good from the cryovac, so we're just gonna get this seasoned up. And there's plenty of surface moisture here. It's really glistening. So I don't think we need to add any binder. We should be good. I'm gonna get the edges. We don't need a super heavy layer like you might put a barbecue rub on something that's gonna smoke for hours and hours and hours. Pork loins generally cook fairly quickly. I'm gonna be using some wood, some cherry wood tomorrow for a little bit of smoke, but it's gonna be minimal because the amount of time it's gonna spend on the grill, on the kettle, I'm not gonna be able to absorb that much flavor, but every little bit helps. And also leaving this sitting overnight is really gonna help some of this seasoning get in there. And that's it, we are all seasoned. Now I'm gonna loosely cover this with some plastic wrap. It's gonna go in the refrigerator, like I mentioned, and I'll see you tomorrow out at the Weber kettle when we grill this up and make some terrific pork loin. So I have the Weber Kettle Performer going here with the Mallory cast iron grate, and I'm also using the Mallory firewall to create 2 zones. It's about 2/3 indirect and 1/3 direct. Now the kettle temp I'm going for today is about 300 degrees, but first I want to get a quick sear on this. We're going to sear this first because we're going to be glazing it later. Our pork loin on. Give it a turn here. All right, let's go ahead and move this indirect. Get my internal temperature probe in here. That's showing 37 internal, perfect. This is fresh out of the refrigerator, just had that sear. Let's get our lid on, get smoking. I'll adjust my vents as necessary to keep us around 300. And at about 105 degrees, we're gonna glaze this. So I'll see you back here in a while when we hit that 105 internal. All right, we've just hit 105 internal. Let's take a look and glaze this pork loin. Looking really good so far. It is definitely time to glaze this. Just gonna pour a little bit of our honey mustard glaze right here, and then we'll brush it around. All right, let's get our lid back on and let this finish to 145 internal. We're coming up on 145 degrees internal. Let's take a look, because it's time to get this pork loin off. Oh, that is beautiful. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get this off here. We're gonna get it inside, let it rest for about 15 minutes, and then we're gonna have a taste. Here's our pork loin. It has been resting for about 15 minutes, just tended it loosely with some foil. This is just the kind of exterior that I love. This honey mustard glaze on here with that layer of flavor underneath with just that simple rub. But I want to correct something. When I was making the glaze, I said that was stone ground mustard. It's not stone ground mustard, it's whole grain mustard. You could see the whole mustard seeds in there. So there is a difference, but you could honestly use a stone ground mustard, a brown mustard, any kind of mustard you like, a Dijon. This is what I was going for here. So let's go ahead and cut in. Let's see. That is looking juicy. I'm saying we got a little bit of a juice-a-lanch there. Let's cut a few slices so I can plate some up and have a taste. This is just looking terrific. Very, very pleased with this. Absolute juice-a-lanch happening. All right, let me plate some of this up. We'll get a little bit more of that glaze on it and then we'll have a taste. So I have a few slices here and I just want to put a little bit of our honey mustard right over here so we can dip some pieces in it. If you wanted to, you could drizzle it right on top of the pork, but I'm doing it this way. Go ahead and cut some right here. Super tender. You probably just do this with a fork. A little bit of that honey mustard. There we go. Layers of flavor again. I'm even getting a hint of that cherry smoke. Now, when you're using wood, especially wood chunks, you don't always get a pronounced flavor. You almost miss it if it's not there, but you don't always go, oh, I can taste that smoke. This case I can. We had a very nice moist exterior there. Smoke loves moisture. Got a little hint of that cherry and it's working well. This would also work well on a pork tenderloin. You can even do it on pork chops. This honey mustard is one of those really versatile sort of sauces or glazes. I've used it on chicken, I've used it on fish. I haven't had a lot of success using it on beef, but for pork, it's a match made in heaven.